Welcome back to Warehouse and Operations as a Career. I'm Marty T. Hawkins, and I thank you for taking the time to check back in with us today. Last week, WAOC had the privilege of attending the WERC conference in Grapevine, Texas. We really enjoyed all the learning sessions and visiting with all the vendors. If you're not familiar with the Warehousing Education Research Council, I'd urge you to check them out. Check with your management team. Odds are someone in your organization is a member, and they'd be happy to share all the weekly info distributed by their authors and members. Today, I thought we'd talk about a few things I took away from the conference, a few thoughts of mine anyway. There was a lot of technology talk, everything from new handheld units to new innovative speech technologies to advanced WMS or warehouse management systems. As you may remember, I've been recently putting together some training classes and working with young men and women that's never worked in a warehouse environment before, training them to use the electric rider jacks and to become production-based order selectors. Anyway, I had a thought. You know, when we drive our vehicle somewhere, let's say to work for example, our minds really take us there. I bet you don't remember making every turn, turning on your blinkers, changing lanes, all those little things like that. That's because our minds are trained to make those kinds of motions. Yeah, we have to be focused on driving, but our minds or memory really handles the simple or repetitive tasks, don't they? And that's kind of what we train equipment operators to. Our minds can do the simple task or those types of thoughts. We consciously are thinking of that next slot, checking out our surroundings, watching for others, etc., and our minds subconsciously will see that our speeds and maneuvering through the warehouse is handled safely. Now, of course, we're staying focused and we're going to be safe throughout the task. As professionals, I've learned our minds are one of the greatest systems within our industry. Anyway, technology made me think of that. Wow, I wandered way off topic there, but really, to some degree, I feel we train our minds and muscles to let us learn to be more productive and a much safer employee. Anyway, I wanted to talk about some of the technologies that were discussed, and I bet some of us have a few opinions on what's out there now, how it's improving, and what will be available to us in a few years. Back in the mid-1990s, I had the fortune of working with one of the first order selection systems that was brought to market. Everything was wired. We had a wrist mount unit that had a small cable running to our finger scanning unit. We wore a battery pack and a small label printer around our waist. A cable connected those two. And there was small wire clips that held the wiring to our freezer suits so everything didn't get all tangled up. Very cumbersome, but effective. Today, everything is Bluetooth or NFC with no communication delays and no wiring of any kind. These units are much more productive than the ones that I learned on. Then we had speech recognition come out a few years later. And again, and I'll be nice here and say it was okay. No, but really, you had to speak very slowly. Its learning capabilities was slow. And we all speak the language a little differently, especially here in Texas. We had to provide so much input, verifying our locations, repeat our check cues over and over. It was just slow. I've never been a fan of speech selection, but after seeing how far the technologies came over the years, I've got to say I'm sold on it now. I visited with several men and women using today's units and talked about all the advantages and efficiencies experienced by the employees and employers today. I'm on the bandwagon again. Lucas Systems gave a great presentation on the new speech technologies and systems from both an employee and a management perspective. I feel it's worth a look. I'll include their URL in today's show notes in case you have a moment, and check out their work execution software. Another great session was with ImageNet Consulting. I myself am kind of a data guy. The more live data I have access to, the more I can get done. Now, I know that's not always true, but we learned about all the available systems and how they can be made to talk to each other. Share with each other, if you will. Just imagine having a dashboard or several even throughout your warehouse showing how many cases have been picked and how many are left to be selected. Even the ability to see each employee's productivity every 30 minutes and tell what routes have been loaded out as well as what's loading out right now and by whom. I'm definitely a dashboard believer. We had some great discussions on the advantages of data and of course how you can overload on it too. Check out their link and services. I assure you'll find something that'll set off a light bulb in the brain. Oh, and I thought Optricity had some great thoughts on slotting, warehouse optimization, and improvement solutions too. I'll add that URL. I think that you'll find they're doing some really good things out there. You know, as a young supervisor, it's easy to get caught up in all the technologies and systems, especially after attending a really good conference. Of course, it's important that we keep our feet firmly planted in the present, too. I mean, we have a job to get done on a daily basis. We can't overreach our company's goal or our abilities. I know here at WAOC, we're always talking about self-education, researching things that we know little about, and learning all the time. But I encourage you to take advantage of every opportunity to sit with or be around those with experiences. That's where the shortcuts to knowledge is. I try and learn from others' mistakes so that I don't have to make them all myself. That reminds me of an employee a few years ago. He wasn't one of mine, actually. He worked on a different shift, but he came to me about how his supervisor and or the transportation supervisor would sometimes come and sit at his table during break. He'd say, "Man, there's 10 open tables and they'll come sit down at mine." He kind of worked on his own, so he was usually alone in the break room. I kept trying to tell him to listen to them and strike up conversation. That's free education, dude. Again, getting noticed by our management teams will never turn out bad for us. When I myself go to these distribution conferences, and of course I love all the breakout sessions, but the vendor expo is where I get to talk and visit with everybody. It's always great to see people in the industry that you've known for years and meet all the new associates coming up in the ranks. I saw a couple of vendors I worked with, 5-10 years ago, still loving their products and enjoying what they do. I think I was most impressed with the robotics being displayed. In the coming years, I think we'll see some really innovative and efficient tools and systems to further our productivity gains as associates. Oh, and another thing I was impressed with was all the Android tablets and handheld units. I won't bother you with the specifics, but I'll include a few links in today's show notes. I had the opportunity to handle no less than 10 different units, and I wanted every one of them. Today's WMS or warehouse management systems are awesome and have really grown into so much more than I could have imagined 10 years ago. A great conference all the way around. Well, there's my week in a nutshell. I enjoyed the WERC conference and feel like I learned a lot while just visiting and meeting others. Of course, I'm not affiliated with any of the companies mentioned today. I just thought you may find their services interesting. I've included several links in today's notes, and I'll add a few from the Vendor Expo too. There's so much tech and new product lines out there. I enjoy trying to keep up with it all. If you attended the conference last week, let me know what you thought of it. Maybe share with the group what all you learned or what impressed you the most. Send us an email to host@warehouseandoperationsasacareer.com and we'll kind of compare notes. And don't forget about our Facebook and Twitter communities. Just use that little @ WHSEANDOPS on either and we'll get a discussion going. While I'm throwing plugs out there, remember you can find many of us hanging out at the Warehouse Equipment Operators community page throughout the week on Facebook too. Until next week, keep learning and keep safety in the forefront of our minds.